Wait for it, and we're live. Beautiful.
Live.
Hello everyone, this is Jacob Popio, the producer of The Apex. In this episode, Jan sits down with TikTok famous singer Abigail Barlow. With over 800,000 followers on TikTok, she has been able to leverage the platform as a testing ground for her music, which led her song Crazy Girls to have over 500,000 streams. Listen as they talk about the first time she ever realized that she wanted to pursue music as a career, an electric moment in Miami when she decided it was time to take things to the next level, and her plans of releasing more of her music in the near future. Follow her on Instagram and TikTok at Abs, of course. Stream her music at Spotify. If you want to support us, there are 3 ways to do so. One is to donate to our cause at www.patreon.com/theapexpodcast. Second, visit our merch line that is proudly partnered with Envision Clothing Company at envisionclothingcompany.com. The final one is completely free. All we ask is if you learn something from this episode or know someone that needs to hear our message, share it with them. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Apex Podcast, live stream style. I am your host, Jan Almasy. As always, if you see me staring off into the distance, it's because I have a huge LCD monitor behind me, because apparently in our studio we need 15 displays. So I have one to my left, one behind me, and I'm live streaming currently from my laptop. So we'll give a couple of minutes to let people trickle in from the alternate platforms, but we should be live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook right now. And we are sitting here today with none other than the Abigail Barlow. For those of you that don't know who that is, you're going to find out relatively quickly here. But if you spend any time on TikTok, you'll have a pretty solid chance of figuring out who she is. She is the artist behind songs such as Crazy Girls and James, 2 of which are your highest performing ones right now,
Yes,
if I'm
doing
right.
very well.
And then some of my personal favorites like Emotional, and a little bit
Emotional,
further back.
Emotional is like my favorite, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite ones. But Abigail, or Abs, I'm just going to call you Abs. I don't want to feel like
Call me
saying
Abs.
Abigail the entire time.
We're
Why
not
don't-
not formal here.
Perfect. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell the audience who you are, where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Abigail, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. And now I live in Los Angeles and moved here when I was 18. So now I'm 21, so I've been here for 3 years, just doing the music stuff.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So we're let's see here. I have all of these streams going. Let's see if we have anything on Twitter. Beautiful. And our YouTubers. So if you guys have any questions, just so you know, I can see your comments, and I can make them pop up, boop, just like that. So if you do comment, and you have any questions for Abs, just go ahead and shoot them into the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments, and we'll try to address those later on in the stream. But for now, I'd like to just go ahead and get this ball rolling.
Let's do it.
So for those of you that have been listening to the Apex for any length of time, you know that we like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into things rather than just talk about superficial stuff.
Mhm.
So everybody knows about Crazy Girls. That is one of those things that just probably was. We'll get to that. We'll get to whether or not that was purposeful or a freak accident. But what I'd like to start, right? You said that you were born and raised in
Raised
Alabama,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Why don't we talk about a little bit? Just tell me about your family and a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Alabama with 3 sisters, and I'm in the middle, so I'm the second to youngest. And my parents are doctors, so we grew up really very, very cautiously, but also they were so supportive of art and music. And I grew up around music all the time because my dad was a musician, for a hobby. And he is very, very good at what he does. But I think he always wanted, his children to share his love of music that he had, because it's like mentally healthy. Music makes me mentally healthy. So I grew up just surrounded by it, and I did theater in high school a lot. And so I kind of grew up knowing that I wanted to be on the stage. I didn't know that I wanted to write music until my dad kind of pushed me towards the piano and said, "You want to be an artist, you need to write your own music." And from there, I just kind of developed this like intense passion for it. And it is like therapy in the way that, if you're feeling something like a strong emotion and you write about it and you just turn it into something positive, it all becomes beneficial to you in the long run.
Oh yeah.
So even if it's heartbreak or something hard you're going through, you can look back on a song and it's beautiful because it's all real and authentic and honest.
Right.
So that started when I was like 16. Started growing my social media audience from home. Just I was online schooled for 3 years in high school, finished early. So I had a lot of free time to learn how to produce music.
And so my little plug for that is that see everybody, like just because you're homeschooled doesn't mean that you turn out freakishly
Weird.
awkward or socially weird. Okay.
And also I think it's because theater was kind of my I don't know, social aspect of my life. All of my friends were from theater and I did so much of it that I was always surrounded by people just like me. So yeah, I became very outgoing. But yeah, so I did a lot of just writing and working on myself because I knew if I wanted to do this, I should start early. I should, really commit myself when my brain is at its most absorbent. Is that absorbent stage where you can just like be a sponge? And I did that until I graduated high school and told my parents like, "Hey, I want to move to LA." And they were like, "Okay."
That's awesome.
And they were very supportive and I'm so grateful for that. I think that's one of the main reasons that I've been successful so far is that I have such a strong support system.
I can 100% attest to that. Without a strong support system, it's like fighting an uphill battle,
Yep.
and that hill is muddy.
Yeah. It would be near impossible for me because I'm someone who needs that support to really because I always have this deep rooted feeling. I think it's because I'm a Scorpio, like that all of the things that I'm feeling are maybe not correct. Like maybe I don't really ever know where I stand. And so to have family who have always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, was so beneficial.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and let's see here. It looks like Ella is homeschooled as well, and you helped inspire her to release her first single, and she's only 14 years old.
Ella, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's so wonderful. I'm so proud of you. And you can do it all yourself, girl. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and we'll get into that too, like doing it all yourself, which is part
Yeah.
of something that I think is so cool. Um, so with the family support and everything like that, two of the artists that you pointed out when you were talking about your dad were Elton John and Billy Joel. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about why those two are so important to you?
Yes. So my dad plays the piano. He's very, very good at it. I'm not as good as him because I can't really read music, but he's a genius at reading music. And he played very heavily because he had their books, like their song books. So he would just play Elton John and Billy Joel my whole childhood. So that's kind of the music, the soulful music, the honest music that I grew up listening to. It's so good. Like their music's just so undeniably wonderful. And
It's
I,
raw. It's just
it's
raw.
raw. It's very raw.
Yeah.
And growing up with that sort of music made me even though I loved pop music, I know that there's a way you can combine the two. You know what I mean? And technically they are pop. They were very popular in their time.
Right.
But the pop we know changes every 5 years. Basically, the sound does. So what I love and the sounds I love and the production I love lends itself to that honesty. It just takes a certain ability to combine the two, and that's what I've been really just trying to hone is like that skill to be able to be honest but also really catchy and also dynamic and interesting to listen to.
Yeah, that's a very like the word dynamic right there, I think just encompasses all of that into one thing where
Right.
learning to be somebody that can convey sometimes even a like the example I always use is something sad in like a happy tone.
Yep.
It's so mind boggling. But then when you're listening to it, I mean, you say it's a therapy for you, but for the listener, it can also be a therapy, which is something that I've heard from multiple artists.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Because I am a listener and that I started as a listener. As a teenager, I loved music and I loved top 40 hits. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know people have you know, some idea that that music isn't good because it's catchy. There's a
Mhm,
reason it's stuck in your head, you know? And I
mhm.
think like being able to really, really have a listener's ear on my music as well is beneficial because I sort of developed it from listening to so much pop music. So I kind of know when something sounds good or when it doesn't, you know?
Right, right.
So that's
And
good.
now when you talk about pop music, right? Something that I thought was oh my god. Okay, so my buddy Mike just hopped in here. He said, "I've watched your TikToks. Music sounds great."
Thank you.
And then to follow that up, you're definitely better at me than singing, which I will gladly
Come
pass that
on.
torch over.
Come on. Anybody
And
can sing. That's another thing. Anybody can sing. I always say that.
yes, they can. So my dad always says that if you were born with a good voice, right, you have to
Mhm.
sing loud and give God praise for the fact that he gave you a good voice.
Exactly.
If you have a horrible voice, you sing louder to get back at him. He
And
said it
sing a
all the time.
lot because honestly, I when I was a kid, I did not have the control I have today or the tone. That was all a developed thing because I sung so much. So
Mhm.
I think I am like in full belief that anybody can sing if you work at it. If you want to be good at something, all it takes is really, really hard work and dedication.
You know how awkward I was the first time I ever hosted a live stream or a podcast? Horrible, horrible. If
Yeah.
anybody goes back and listens to my first couple of episodes, I am so awkward. But now we're 50, 60 something episodes deep. It's a little bit different, but
Right.
please,
Right.
for the love of everything, be graceful when you're judging the first couple of episodes of this. So we started talking about like the mixture of pop and everything, right? And a lot of people think that pop singers, for whatever reason, like you said, they're kind of looked down on for whatever
Mhm.
reason.
Yeah.
An example I always use is like, hey guys, Ariana sang on Broadway, you know,
Right.
prior to being a pop singer. And like now, do I think that she needs to let loose a little bit more because she kind of holds back? Like you can feel the power that she's holding back.
Mhm.
Um, but it's because she has so much control that she can take that voice and
Yeah,
turn it into something. And your
exactly.
background, right, is in a lot of musical theater.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't we
And
why don't we explore that a little bit?
yeah, I think that I love Ariana and I would talk about her for days. So like forgive me if I just start to ramble, but I think that woman is one of the most like one of the strongest women given all of the circumstances and things that she's been through in a public forum and the way that just everyone can just comment on her life and like they know her and what she's been through. And I think her new music, the things on Thank You Next, number one of my Desert Island albums. Like if I were to be stranded on a desert island, it would be Thank You Next and Cosmic, the Bazzi album. But
Okay. Okay. Cool.
um it's because they're no skip. It's because it's so honest and in the way that maybe you see it as holding back, I see it as her growing and her um going through something so traumatic that it doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't, I think for a long time, she was controlled by producers and people who sort of forced her
Mhm.
to use that power, maybe even when she didn't want to. And I think now that she's at the point where she could drop a song at midnight and all of us would listen, she knows that she doesn't really have to do anything she doesn't want to do. And the way that she makes her art is very specific. I think that there's
Mhm.
a very clear, straight line to where she's headed as an artist. And it's all in her control. And I think that's so wonderful, especially for a female artist, you know?
Oh yeah, this album is definitely my favorite
Mhm.
Ariana album by far, and for the same reasons. And like the controls piece of it is when I first heard her as a singer early on, right?
Mhm.
It's almost like there's this guy Jesse Kramer, right,
Mhm.
that sang, and you can tell as soon as the waves hit the microphone that he had raw power in
Yep.
his voice, like
Absolutely.
and as that song progressed, I was like, "Oh my god, like please, I'm just like vying for you to just like let it
Yeah.
fly." Right? And that's how I felt when I first heard Ariana sing. Like you can tell that that power was there. And
Yeah.
then she started like progressing throughout the career, progressing, and now with Thank You Next, it's such a dynamic balance.
Yeah. It
And
is.
and you
Such
can tell like some of the songs she's just like letting it rip, and then other ones she has like this it's
intentional.
Yeah, we could spend the entire rest of the
I
live
know.
stream, I'm sure, just talking about Ariana
Crazy
Grande.
Ariana.
But so your background in musical theater, when did you start performing? Kind of because when we talked, prior to the live stream, you said that
Mhm,
you developed this like tunnel vision, right, early on in life, and
mhm.
musical theater is all you wanted to do. So why don't we start with kind of like the first thing that pushed you into theater, and then
Yeah.
we'll develop that tunnel as it progresses.
Okay. So the first time I ever really wanted to perform, I've been through a lot of different activities, and my parents never wanted us to be bored. That was the thing. They were like, if you say you're bored, we're going to sign you up for some sort of activity, which I think is very helpful and has been helpful for my creativity too.
Oh yeah,
So at first I was a gymnast. I did gymnastics when I was like, younger kids, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then after I sort of got bored of that, I wanted to do competitive dance. So I did that for like my whole elementary school years until like sixth grade.
that explains being able to cut it up.
Yep. We still got it. We still got it. I've never given up on that. But then when my sisters started to do musical theater and being in shows, and I got to see them perform in musicals and sing, dance, and act, I was like, you can do all three at the same time. What am I doing?
What am
So
I doing with my life?
right, like why am I just picking one?
Right.
So I asked my parents if I could do that, and that it was history from there. Like I did it until I graduated, um, and I think it was because I'm kind of a natural leader, and there
Mhm.
was a program where you could for high schoolers it was year round, so you would just do theater pretty much every week, and we would do like 2 shows over the year, and then they would do like musicals throughout the year that you could audition for.
Mm.
Uh, and so I just started auditioning for all of them, and I did it so much that it almost became a job. Like I said, treat something like it's your job, it kind of becomes your job.
Mhm.
And uh, that's when I told my parents, like, look, this is really what I want to do. I know what I want to do. I know that I want to go to college for musical theater. Actually, thought I wanted to go to college for that, and let me online school and finish high school early so that I can go ahead and do that.
I was
And
gonna say, how old were you when you told your parents this is what I wanna do for a living?
um 10th grade,
10th grade?
10th
Okay.
grade, I was like, this is just seems like my path, and the only thing I'm really good at. Like I just couldn't see myself going to school for anything else.
Right.
And
That's fair.
that was just sort of the route that I always thought everyone went on. I didn't really think it was a possibility to not go to school, and maybe I thought I needed a degree in something. So
Mm.
I really started to just throw myself into that, and had tunnel vision. Really, I just didn't really see music, even though I loved music. I was growing a social media following around singing pop music. I didn't see that as ever being a possibility. I was like, it is such a hard industry to break into. There's no way I'm going to be able to get my foot in the door. That's just like a pipe dream. Uh,
Mhm.
and that was truly the dream that I had when I started growing my social media. I was already doing musical theater and thinking about college and all of that. And then I did a program called Young Arts,
Mhm.
uh, which is in Miami. And that's a whole thing. That's kind of where I discovered that I wanted to do music and writing pop music as a career.
Right. Yeah,
And it was fun.
if I remember correctly, there was actually a distinct moment down in Miami
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
remember it
I'll
all
talk about
kinda
it.
coming together.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. So it's an application process, and I kind of want to just touch on it for
Yeah.
any high schoolers who are in the arts and are maybe interested.
Is
Um,
it just youngarts, .com? What is the website for that?
youngarts.org.
Youngarts.org? Alright, and for
Mhm.
everybody that's listening, I'll go ahead and post that in the comments for you guys to
Mhm.
look at.
I think it's either youngartsfoundation.org or Young Arts. Let me just make sure. But it's a scholarship program basically. Um, but it's cash money if you win the finalist. So it's not really like it would go towards a school or anything. But it's all the arts, so it's multiple categories, and it's like an application process online. So like there are 11,000 applicants across the country, and it's just like a wonderful opportunity for young artists to come together and collaborate. So I did the pop music, pop vocal um, category
Mhm.
and was not expecting to get in. I was like, this is just such a I barely even wanted to audition because I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna get it and it would be really embarrassing if I didn't. So
Like, what are those things that you, like, wanna go do, but you're not gonna tell anybody about
right,
it just in case
right,
you fail?
right. And my mom was like, you're gonna do this. And I was like, okay, fine. So I submitted last minute and then I was a finalist and I was so surprised. And
Hmm.
the whole time I went there, I was like, I do not belong. Everyone here is so fantastic. What happened? How did I get here? Um, and we got to collaborate with the songwriters because there's also a songwriting category.
Mhm.
And I met this wonderful artist. Her name's Paris Alexa, and she's still creating music. She's killing it right now. Um, and I was just supposed to sing her song that she had already written. And then I developed a crush on someone in the theater category, and I was like, "Ugh, boy drama." I had to talk to her about it, and she was like, "Let's write a song about it." And I was like, "Really? Okay." So I sat down with her, and it was just like an electricity in the room
Mhm.
when I was writing with her. And it spoke to my heart in a way that, like, it felt like God was talking to me. I
Mm.
was like, this is it. It was like,
Mhm.
this is what you need to be doing. It was so fulfilling in a way that, like, still gives me goosebumps because, like,
Yeah.
it just felt so natural and like it was what I was meant to do. And from that moment on, we finished that song, and I was like, "That's it. This is all I want to ever do
Mm.
for a living ever is write music." And that was very new to me because I really was a stranger to that before then. And then I came home and just poured myself into it. I just prolifically wrote uh,
Mhm.
and wanted to produce pop music then because that I was like, okay, so how do I make it sound like the music on the radio? You know, how do I add beats? How do I add synthesizers and it's not just piano? Uh,
Mhm.
and how do I make it sound professional? So then I dove into another passion of mine, which is a big part of my music, and producing. Because I'm a control freak, I have the ultimate control over my music and how it sounds. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it gave me so much confidence, and I felt so confident doing it. Sometimes in theater, I I felt a little nervous, but when I'm writing a song, there's just like nothing better in the world, or anything that I'd rather be doing.
That's writing music is very, um, intense, like, emotion-wise.
Yeah,
I've never I'm not a songwriter by any means, but I do write a lot.
yeah.
Um,
Poetry's the same way.
yeah, and so,
Same
like, the
way.
poetry that I write or, like, any of the blog posts that I write or anything like that, um, some of the ones that I've written, especially lately, I just have been really trying to tap in, and the thing is that when you unlock that piece,
Mhm.
like, and it starts to flow, it's
Yeah,
like
it's
there's nothing else going on. I mean,
right.
there
You
could
just
be
zone
a
out.
hurricane and
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
locked in the zone.
I
And then
love
that
that.
after feeling is just like being able to say I did that
Yeah,
is
it's the best. It's like so cathartic because is that
yeah,
cathartic?
that's the right word. Yep.
Cathartic because you go through all of this and our minds are always moving so fast. Mine
Mhm.
is. And I have so many ideas and I feel things very, very deeply. I'm very sensitive and I'm an empath to my core, and everyone
Mhm.
around me affects my mood and how I feel. And that's a lot to carry as a human. You know what I mean? That just like the energy that just affects me constantly. I try
Yep.
to not let it, but it's pretty impossible because it's just who I am. It's my nature. And
Mm.
so one of the things that has really helped me cope with that is writing because I can't carry that around all the time, because it just makes me unhappy. So when I can really put energy into something positive, even if it's a negative experience, it I always learn something about myself. I always come out of it feeling way better than I went into it. And that's why I say it's like therapy that I don't have to pay for, that I get paid to do, you know?
Right, exactly. Do you know who NF is? Nathan Feuerstein? He's a rapper. So
Yeah.
I mean his entire thing is like real music and like
Mhm.
being raw and everything like that. And his entire like album premise, he's one of those people in order for me to listen to music, it has to be intricate. right?
Absolutely, me too.
I cannot like the fact that 6ix9ine came out with a new song and it's like blowing up right now makes me so upset with humanity. Um, and I watched like 30 seconds of the video and I was like, I can't do this. This is making me lose. I'm losing brain cells watching this right now.
Oh my
But NF, on the other hand, he has these, I think he's at 4 albums right now, right? He started out with like Mansion, where he talks about the intricacies of his mind. And then he moves into like a therapy session where he's talking about counseling. And then he goes into perception, which is what his perception of life is after going through therapy.
Wow.
And then he goes into the search, which is him trying to find himself after all of that. And all of the albums is one giant cohesive storyline through all 4.
That's my favorite thing. That's kind of I'm sort of developing something like that because my songs that I've written are pretty chronological to my life,
Mm.
and the fact that we went through this big pandemic this year, like right before, it was like everything was happening. It's positive, like really exciting things. I wrote a song that kind of blew up a little bit on TikTok. I developed relationships with people in the business, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden everybody was at home and told to stay at home and we couldn't move. So like I all of a sudden was blessed with a writing camp of just me pouring myself, like not having any distractions, and
Mhm.
being alone with my thoughts. And that can be so
Scary.
it can be scary, but very it can be healthy if you take breaks and
Mhm.
don't allow yourself to be consumed by it. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm starting to be consumed by this. I should probably take a break. I went home to see my family. But there is something to be said about someone just completely opening their diary and saying, here, read this to
Mhm.
everyone, like I think it's great.
He blows my mind because he talks about, like, his mom ODing. He talks about his dad physically and mentally abusing him. Like,
Mm.
in the song Mansion, he has this room inside of his house, right, his mind, that
Gee,
he always keeps locked because
wow,
inside of that room are the memories of his abusive father,
that's
and
such a
it's
fantastic analogy. Oh,
so intricate, right? And so
wow.
I have people texting me right now, like, "I am so living for this NF conversation." Shout out to Emily Popio. But there's a anyway, he's one of those artists that I could talk about for 400 hours
I'm
too.
about to go straight listen to all of them in succession. So,
Yeah, yeah, you
after,
definitely need to. I want a review
yeah,
after.
oh, I'll give it to you.
Um, okay, so after we moved to LA,
Mhm.
you moved to LA. Obviously, I'm in the Midwest. You moved to LA and you started going through this writing stuff. Let's talk about like when you started realizing that you could use social media as a testing ground because you were really focused on writing. You're starting to put stuff out.
Mhm.
We talked about the moment that you decided this is, what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is there a moment that you can think of after you moved out to LA that it shifted gears again?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was growing it, it was still musically, not TikTok yet. And I got to LA and I was still writing so much. And I wasn't aware that you could write things or write music and just put it out. Like I thought it was a much more deep thing and I would have to copyright things. Technically, and for every writer knowing this, technically you can pay for a copyright on your music, but technically the second that you write it down and you like have an original thought or an idea and you voice memo it, it is copyrighted.
Hmm.
Like that's the second. Nobody knows that. I think it's like people think it's like some
Weird,
elaborate.
intricate process. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can, basically publish your music with a sort of like a music licensing company or anything like that, like ASCAP or BMI, and register your songs there, which I do. But it's really that simple, and I didn't know that until very recently. And so I just kind of sat on basically a 600,000 person following for like a couple years, really, because Musically was really not the place for original content. It was mostly
Mhm.
like lip syncing
Lip
and
Haven, yeah.
2D videos. Yeah. And so I was creating all these sounds and people were actually using my sounds. That's how I became
Mm.
big on Musically, was that I would just make all these original sounds that people would lip sync to.
Mhm.
Um, but uh, I spent a few years not really knowing if I was good enough to do this because it's it's a big talent pool out here. It's a very saturated market. And I think I was a kid still that was a little naive. And I had a following, but I didn't really have any knowledge of the industry or the business. I
Mm.
had a manager who, we never signed contracts or anything, but he also never really did anything for me. And so I was just like, okay, well, where am I going? Where is this headed? So
Mhm.
I started hustling and hustling and hustling and performing a lot with not a lot of, I guess, return. I wasn't really making money.
Now, before you push on beyond that idea, when you say hustle, I want you to explain to people what you were actually doing.
Yeah.
Like,
This is just an example, but I was setting up my own shows here in Los Angeles. And every Sunday, Saturday and Sunday, I would go to the Anaheim Farmers Market, which is about a 2-hour drive. I would be my own roadie. So I had this huge 86 key weighted piano that I took with a stand and these big, huge stereo speakers because they didn't provide them. So I had to bring my own. And my loop station that I used. And I would just haul it all with me to Anaheim, and I would perform for like 2 hours, like a 2-hour set, original music, covers. And I started creating relationships with people there. And yeah, I loved doing that. It was like, it was so much work, such hard work, but it didn't feel like hard work. It felt like I was like living my dream. And I was just so grateful that I got to do that every week. And everyone was so nice. No one was impolite. All of the vendors were so kind. And that was just a great experience and like the best kind of hustle, you know?
and uh, those moments, right, where you can look back and you're like, yeah, I'm sure when you like tell people and people that are watching this video are going to be like driving 2 hours, hauling all your own equipment to play at a farmer's market,
Yeah.
every Saturday, Sunday. I'm sure there's days where it was hot as hell,
Oh,
you know what
every
I mean? Outside for sure.
in Anaheim.
Yeah. And so like you're out there, you're sweating your ass off, you're hauling all this stuff, you're doing your thing. That's what makes or breaks people right
Yeah.
there. Those
Yeah.
situations, and when we talked about this beforehand, and some of our listeners know this story, but this studio that we're sitting in right now is, I mean, 1920s, 1930s themed speakeasy,
Love it.
right?
My favorite.
And we drove down. I'll show it to you after we hop off the live, but we
Mhm.
drove down to South Carolina and back in one day. Like me and my co-founder found this stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
Wow.
We threw a U-Haul onto my truck, drove 23 hours total down to South Carolina and back. He
Might
got us
for
stuck
me.
in like an hour and a half of Charlotte traffic, but that's a
Oof,
different story.
oof, oof.
And we came back and like every time we tell people that story, they're like, "What the hell? Like, you guys did what?"
Why?
Right? Why would you do that? But then they
Yeah.
come to the studio and they're like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And so, like, that storyline, I'm such a big proponent of, even if it sucks, if it's something that you've got to grind through, it's something you got to gut through. I always tell people, think about what this memory is going to be like 2 or 3 years from now when you're looking back and you can tell people, yo, listen to this. You want to tell me that I'm not a grinder, I'm not an OG that was willing to eat dirt at the beginning. Let me
Yeah.
tell you about the Anaheim Farmers Market.
It's a hard business, and I think it's so saturated that you have to be willing to like sleep in your car for this. Like if it's because the to be able to do something for a living that you love is such a privilege. It's such a
Yes.
wonderful thing that everyone deserves, but you have to work hard for that, and you have to
Hmm.
be able to like see there are people that go to work and are doing it because they have to make ends meet, and they don't necessarily love sitting at a desk or putting in the hours that they are. But the fact that like I'm doing that and I really want it and I'm not going to stop until it happens, will make you do anything.
Hmm.
I will work as hard as I must for this to be a reality. And then it becomes reality when you are
Right.
working that hard. And so yeah, the farmers market I performed for high school sometimes during lunch. And
What?
yeah, I know.
That's so cool.
And I mean, like everywhere in Los Angeles. Like I went to Palm Springs. I drove like 3 hours to Palm Springs one time to perform at Palm Springs High School.
Jeez.
It was so great. It was like literally 108 degrees outside. It was so hot. But it was wonderful. And that was really one of the only times I ever like drew a crowd at a high school, but somebody like promposed. They asked me to like cover a song and, you know,
Oh,
so they could do a promposal, just like so many memories of times where I was like, this is just wonderful. And I'm not, this is just like a fraction of what it could be. You know what I mean?
right. You're like, I'm not even there yet.
I'm
And
not
you're
even there
like,
yet. And I
but
feel,
I'm enjoying the journey
yeah,
already. And so like for me, stuff like this, having these types of conversations, I'm like, I'm having so much fun doing this. I can't even fathom,
I know. It's
what the future would be like
right.
because this is so much fun as it is. And
Yeah.
I'm in a tiny incubator office in the Midwest, right?
I'm looking back on the days where you just, had your head to the grindstone is like
Mhm.
so important. But
Getting your roots.
yeah, and at a certain point, I was like, okay, there are millions of ways to make this happen. There's a million little routes to the finish line, you know? And this is starting to wear on me. I'm really working hard and seeing no fruit, like I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. So I was like, okay, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I was
Right.
like, let's reassess. Let's see if there's another route or something that I could be doing that I'm not taking advantage of. And this was actually like last year, like that this happened. So I had been sitting on my Musically following, and then it became TikTok. I was in a relationship. I was preoccupied, and it was a first love situation that just didn't end very well. And all of a sudden, at the end of it, I was like, I really haven't written much music at all. I kind of lost myself and lost what was important, forgot why I came here. And I think we all have those moments. We all go through that one time in life where we just are not ourselves and we learn so much from it.
Mhm.
I don't regret it. I think it is completely one of the reasons why I am back on it in such a major way. Is because when you have that moment where you just have a crisis of identity, it makes you never ever want to go back there again. You
Mhm.
know? So at that point, I started revisiting writing. And I think Crazy Girls was the first song I wrote coming out of that relationship. And I was like, you know what? This is a really good hook. I was like, you know what? I bet I saw people like on TikTok. This point, this is when I knew that I could start writing music and putting it on TikTok because,
Mhm.
Yellow Hearts was big. And I was like, that was a TikTok? A dude, and now he has a record deal? What am I doing?
Yeah, even Old Town Road, like, that was straight up TikToks more or Falling,
Yeah.
all of those songs.
I started to see that TikTok had a power that nothing else in the industry had. Like,
I have a whole playlist on Spotify dedicated
oh,
to TikTok bangers,
oh,
like
all the top hits were made famous on TikTok. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
And I was just like, there's no way I have to try to revive this following because I'll be remiss if I didn't. So I put up a little clip of Crazy Girls, and it went it wasn't viral, but it went pretty viral. It got a bunch of likes, and a lot of my favorite TikTokers were like, release this now. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, okay. I didn't think that would be the response.
Which
Uh,
I'm pretty sure it is, like, everybody's response at this point because like, I posted that duet video of
and they're like,
you singing Trust Issues, and they're, like, twitching. They're like, "I thought this was a release video. Why did you post it?" I'm like, "Oh my god, I just wanted to
people are,
invite you to the live stream. Stop attacking me."
people are truly angry. I'll get to that too. We'll talk about trust issues and all that. But so yeah, I wrote Crazy Girls. That happened, and then it was over the Christmas break last year, and I was like, I don't know. I need a mixer. I need someone to help me mix and master this because I produced it,
Mhm.
but I don't know how to mix and master. It's a whole nother story. If I had known how obsessed I'd be with music, I would have gone to school for mixing and mastering, just engineering music, because it's such a good skill to have.
Yep.
But so I contacted my friend Pascal, who I think has commented before, but he is my mixer, my masterer of my music, and he helps me produce. He added all of the drums on Crazy Girls and all of the drums on James. Really helps me in that process. But I contacted him out of the blue, and I was like, "Look, I need you to help me. I've got 7 days. We need to release this song on Friday." Can you help me? And he was like, yes. And I was like, great,
Full send.
flawless. So then it was over Christmas break. It was so annoying of me to ask him to do that on Christmas break, but he was so kind, and we sent things back and forth, and then we got it released. And it has done better than any other song I've ever released. It got on a Spotify playlist, which I like literally peed my pants about. I was so excited. I didn't submit it for playlisting, so they found me and put it on, and now it has over 500,000 streams, which is bizarre to me. Bizarre.
Yeah.
Can't,
When
can't,
you start to get into those types of numbers and stuff like that, your brain's like, what?
it doesn't like compute.
I
To me.
wonder. So I'm gonna ask you a question because I recently went through this type of thought process. I wonder if you kind of experienced the same thing where you're like, spend so much time with like the nose to the grindstone,
Yeah.
right? Staring at the floor. I mean, just like getting trampled on over and
Mhm.
over. And like, what are you doing with your life? You should get
Yeah.
a degree. Why are you chasing this? You should go do something else. Um, and then you start to get to where, like, inside of your brain, you've seen that vision for so long, but nobody else has. And then you get something like 500,000 streams plus,
Yeah.
and it starts happening. And you're like, whoa, 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 hold on. Like, okay, I've had this vision for a very long time, and
Yeah.
now it's happening. And like, for me, all of this started moving, and I was like, I'm not quite sure how to deal with this. Like,
Right.
I've been expecting it to happen, but I
Mhm.
never actually really thought. I don't know if it's I never thought I'd actually be able to pull it off, or I didn't know if the universe was gonna be willing to give it to me,
Mhm.
but, like, then it started happening, I'm like, "Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's
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 happening."
it's definitely a change in the tide for me. And honestly, with what you said about, people constantly telling you you can't do this or what are you doing? You're crazy. I really had that internal monologue. That was always what I told myself.
Mm,
And that I wasn't good enough to do this, and that there are people that are way better, and that this is just a crazy pipe dream that I would never be able to ever be able to achieve. I was writing all of my music for a long time at to the sort of to please an audience. So like every
mhm,
every line I would write, I'd be like, "Is this catchy? If are people going to listen to this?" And that is the quickest way to write terrible music because it's
yeah,
not honest. It's not for you first. And I think I after that relationship and after just losing myself completely, I needed to be honest in my music. I had spent a year and a half being scared to write a song because I couldn't be honest with myself. I was telling all of my friends and family I was fine and everything was perfect. And so I couldn't release it and show them how terrible things had been, like, or how miserable I was,
mhm,
because then they'd know, and so I couldn't be honest
yeah,
with myself or anyone around me. And so when I started writing music again, there was this level of clarity and honesty that I think my music has lacked from the beginning. And with that response, and such a gigantic response, um, it actually gave me a path because I knew, okay, well then that's it. From this moment on, there will never be another song that I don't write completely honest. Honestly, even if it's only inspired by true events,
mhm,
I'm going to be very very honest. I'm not going to lie about how I feel, and not honest
mhm,
in the way of like, you know, telling everyone what happened, but honest in my emotions.
mhm,
Um, and I think that really gave me a path and validation that like me as an artist and my thoughts and my emotions and the way that I translate them into music is enough. It's enough. I don't have to please anyone but myself, and it is for me, and it's a really wonderful thing
yeah,
because then once it's for you, everyone can relate to that. Everyone can relate to honesty when you're honest
mhm,
about real life stuff, like love is one of the most powerful emotions in the world, and it's really the closest thing we have to magic, and it inspires me to write the most music. And I
yeah,
think it, even the success or whatever it is, now I've been able to step back from it and say, okay, what will happen and what will be. All I really need to focus on is the music. And so I've definitely refocused in the past few months, and especially with quarantine, it's like it's kind of out of my control at that point, you know? So I try to make it less about who all is listening and more about what is the content of the music and how good I think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you make that transition to just that brutal honesty.
Mhm.
I just released a podcast this week with a girl named Serena Hendershot,
Mhm.
Serena Draper Hendershot. She's like the director of one of the nonprofits in our area. She's
Okay.
my age.
Wonderful.
And we talked about both of us like going through suicidal ideation in high school. We talked about my drug abuse back in the day. We talked about her, like, she experienced three family deaths, her ex boyfriend being shot and killed,
Oh my
and
god.
then like all of these other things in the course of like 6 months, right?
Oh, that's
Talked
so
about just like
trauma. Oh.
how down, like how deep down in a hole she was. And then we're just like brutally upfront about the fact that we were like in a bad spot. But in order to convey to people, here's how you get out of it,
Mhm.
they need to know about the pain,
Oh, yeah.
right? And you
Oh,
can
yeah.
feel it like in your music, and the way that you convey it through your voice
Mhm.
is one of the most beautiful things I think about music. And since the beginning of time, we've been as humans, since I always say, ever since we figured out how to smack two sticks together and it makes a
Yeah.
we've been trying to use music to convey emotion.
Yep.
One of my close friends, Mark Leach, is a country singer,
Mhm.
and one of his favorite songs he wrote all in one sitting
Yep.
in an apartment with no furniture in it after his grandfather passed away.
Mm.
And he wrote this song called "If There's a Bar Up in Heaven," right?
That's
And
wonderful.
it is like I listen to it every time I go to visit my grandpa at the cemetery and I have a beer with him,
That's
right? And
so
it's
sweet.
so deep and so intricate. And Mark is like one of the best guys that I know. He's the one that I told you that started writing music, making barbecue sauce
Oh, yeah.
in his parents' shop.
Yeah.
So that's Mark. But
Wonderful.
yeah, I love when you realize as an artist, when you get to that point where the raw honesty starts to really showcase itself, that's when
Yeah.
music just
That's when you become an artist.
elevates. Yeah.
That's because, I mean, if you have a point of view and a perspective and a place, that's where you're writing from, you're an artist,
Yeah.
because everyone has a different perspective and everyone, um, explains and interprets their emotions a different way. And so when an artist can do that, um, very honestly and create an organic, uh, sort of sound, then they will find an audience,
Right.
because the
Um,
human experience is so shared.
I kind of want to touch base on a couple of let's see here. There's a comment here that says, ask her about releasing What If, please. And
What if
I'm not even really sure what that is. Is that a song?
I what if oh, I'm trying to think.
You
I
listen.
have to go look through my TikToks because I've written so much over quarantine. Um,
And that's fine. I just like I saw that pop up and it wasn't something I'm familiar with, and I figured that I had done my relative amount of research into your TikToks.
yeah, I'm
Uh,
like I'm blanking right now. I've written so much, but
And that's a good problem to have, having all of those songs in the bank.
what if it's me? Oh, why do I?
Why do I? Okay.
Maybe it's me, maybe. So yes, why do I? There've been a few like fan favorites on my TikTok. Why do I is one of them. I'm working on that right now. I'm trying to find a really good producer. Pascal's going to help me, I think, and he's going to be the one to produce it. But I've been struggling recording it because it is very much one of those anthems that needs to be gangy, like kind of Bad Blood, Taylor Swift.
Mm,
Like like why do I always pick? And
yep.
I want to do it healthily, and I've been a little nasally recently, so I'm still working on that vocal. But yes, I'm planning on releasing all of the music that I've been writing on TikTok at some point this year. There is no release date yet, but I think Trust Issues is going to be this summer. So everybody that's so
That's gonna be a summer banger, by
yeah,
the way.
Trust
That
Issues.
song is going to be ridiculous. I am so amped for that to come out.
That's my baby. She's like my one song that I listen to, and I have a listener's ear on every single time I listen. I'm not. it's stopped being like a bias thing. Like it's just sort of undeniably, I wrote it
A
in 5
banger.
minutes for a reason. It was truly exactly what everyone wants to hear because it's what I wanted to hear when I wrote it.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, I read a comment on it not too long ago that said, "I need this to slowly build up and then have a big ass bass drop." And I was like, okay, I could
Just
vibe with
wait.
that."
Just wait. I've actually had it produced, and all I really need to do now is the final vocal. Um, and I'm really, really excited about it.
Why don't we this is actually kind of a perfect transition into TikTok itself. Why don't we talk about how you've learned to utilize TikTok as a testing ground for your
Yeah,
music?
yeah, yes. Back to that. So that really started with Crazy Girls and seeing that, oh, things I'm writing, I can put on TikTok and like gain traction as an artist. Like people will be finding me because they like my music and what I'm writing, which is like more than just them liking my voice. You know what I mean? It's very different. And I, I think from then on, I saw, okay, I can use this very beneficially because if these are the people that are going to be listening to my music, I should start to sort of test and see what they like, you know?
Mhm.
And because it will also help me determine what I put on my album because everybody kind of guesses when they put out an album. Like artists write 80 songs for an album, like hundreds of songs, and then they have their label whittles it down to 13, 14 songs. And then you just sort of cross your fingers and pray, you know?
Mhm.
And because no one really knows anything about anything, even labels, you can't really predict success. They can try, but you know, people will surprise you all the time because the audience is always changing, the music's always changing, and
Yep.
what everyone is into is determined by what the world is going through at the time, you know? So um the fact that I can put a 1 minute snippet of a verse and a chorus, which is basically what the song will sound like throughout the whole thing. So people can kind of imagine what it's going to sound like and get their opinion and get their ideas because my followers are smart and they listen to music and genuinely love my music and want me to be successful. So I know when they're giving me constructive criticism, it I mean, like it's meant to help me, you know? It's never like a hate comment. It's always so constructive and gives me so much to think about. So
Mhm.
that even if I'm just releasing it because I just wrote this verse and chorus and that's it, it will also inform the rest of the song for me. It also helps me write the rest of it, you know?
Mhm.
So it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience of growing organic followers and actually making connections and friendships with those followers because they're all so talented in their own way, you know?
Yeah.
I think listeners are the smartest people. You should get listeners' opinions always. Um, because there's listeners to regular pop music. It's like, okay, that's really good to know that they're really into it. But then there's listeners to, you know, different kinds of genres and also people who have more of an idea of like, okay, structurally, how good is this song structured or, you know,
Mhm.
how intricate or like almost
Yeah.
critic like. And so having both of those sides of the coins represented in my followers has it's been wonderful, you know? It's been the best for my music too.
Yeah, having you have an access to a beta testing ground that a lot of people don't have, and that's what I'm
Exactly.
trying to put out. So, Mark, if you're listening to this, I have been yelling at you for months now to get on TikTok.
Get
I'm
on TikTok, Mark.
I want you to watch this video and take Abs's advice and get on TikTok.
Mhm.
I even offered, I was like, dude, give me videos. I will cut them up and put them on TikTok for you. I just need you on TikTok because I love country music, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't care if it's just a G, C, A, and a D chord. Country is more about the story than it
It
is
is.
the intricacy of the
Good
music.
country music is all about storytelling.
It is all about storytelling. And then when people are like, "Oh my god, it's the same 4 chords." I'm like, "Okay,
Whatever,
do you understand what the music is about?"
right.
What but I've been telling Mark, like, "Dude, your music is phenomenal, right? You have this good following.
Put it up on TikTok.
Get on TikTok."
The worst case scenario is that you don't get any, you know, input, but the best case scenario is that someone reaches out to you from a label. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
TikTok is that powerful these days.
right.
And
Especially in music.
especially in music. I mean, there are huge artists on TikTok that follow me now, women that I've looked up to for years in my formative years of writing and teenage years. Megan Trainor, JoJo, like the JoJo, not JoJo Siwa.
What?
Um, and it just blows my mind because these women have informed my entire childhood,
Right.
and it's that powerful. Everybody's on it now. You should be on it, Mark.
I cannot count the number of times I listened to Too Little Too Late as a kid.
Oh my gosh,
Like, she is absolutely phenomenal.
she's insane. She recorded Get Out when she was 13. Like that music video, she was 13.
What?
Yes.
13?
She
I
was
had no idea she was that young.
so young. She's 29 now.
Force of nature.
She's a freak of nature. She is crazy talented.
God.
Her
Okay.
new album's also a bop, by the way. If you guys haven't listened to it, you should. She's got a new album out.
Small plug.
Small plug for JoJo.
All right. So to wrap all of this up, I mean, we're getting close to our hour time frame here. Why don't you can give us a little bit of like where things that you need to plug, places where
Yeah.
you're heading into the future. I know, Trust Issues is going to come out. I'll make sure that all of my followers have a good pulse on when that's going to drop because
Mhm.
I'm going to be jamming to it in my Silverado.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so what do we got? What do we got to look forward to from Abs?
So all of the things that I've been writing and putting on TikTok are for a longer project that I'm planning, and it's
Ooh.
going to be sort of an album type of deal. But before that, I'm going to be releasing a few singles, a few things that people are waiting for, people are dying for. So Trust Issues is one of them. I think Nobody Cares is probably one of them. It's another fan favorite. Why Do I is probably one of them. And I think the album will be towards the end of this year, the full thing, because I really want to have just a wealth of songs to choose from and really pick the best ones. But yeah, Trust Issues is something you should look out for. But I will always let you know. Like I'll never just drop something out of the blue or quietly. Like I will promote it, and it will be very obvious that I'm going to release something. So all you really need to do is follow my social medias, especially my Instagram, and put the notifications on for grid posts, because normally I don't really post on the grid posts unless it's for promotion, or I haven't posted in a while if there's something like a new song that I've written. So follow that, and also follow my Spotify. And I think you can do something where I'll give pre-save links so you can actually be notified when it's available for save, and it would automatically save to your Spotify. So that's for when releases do happen. But yeah,
most definitely. So all of those links will be posted. So the beautiful thing is that this live stream, guys, is going to end up being translated into a podcast episode on the Apex. And all of those links that she talked about, we're going to make sure that those links are in the description so that they're easily accessible, and you guys can go ahead and follow all of those different accounts. Definitely advocate, if you're not on TikTok, to get on there, because if you're not, you're falling behind the times.
Join us.
Actually, my plug for that from my side of the house is come to the dark side, first off. But the entire reason why this happened is because I was on a live stream watching. I think you were like singing a new verse to something. It was at like
2 a.m. 2 in the morning.
It was like super late at night, and I'm a night owl anyway. And there was like 70 people in the live stream. I was like, nah, I'll just throw out the idea about a podcast. And then A led to B, and now here we are. So for those of you that don't think that TikTok is applicable in business, tell that to my 35,000 followers.
Boom. Boom.
And that's the tip of the iceberg. Oh, you got like 800 plus thousand, but 35,000 is functional for what I'm doing, because I'm not an artist or anything like that. I just needed to be able to prove a concept with a social platform.
It's a jumping off point. I mean, TikTok, you can literally do anything with that following you want. It will help in so business, everything.
And the whole the testing grounds and everything like that is just, don't be afraid to be raw. That's what it's all about. If you take anything from this entire conversation that we've had today, just don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yep.
Right. Go out. If you have something that you're passionate about and you want to pursue it, first of all, it's not a right to be able to do that. Everybody has the option. Everybody should have the option. I understand there's inequality and there's all these other things. If we take all of that out, you have the right to pursue it,
Right.
right? But you don't have the right to succeed at it. That's a
Yeah.
privilege.
Yep. Absolutely.
You have to earn that.
Yeah.
So the number of people that I've encountered, especially in the last 6 months, that are like, "Oh, like how are you doing this? Like I could definitely do that." And I'm like, "Then why aren't you doing it? Go
Right.
do it.
Yeah. There's nothing stopping you. You get
Just start."
it's scary, but it can be scary because it feels overwhelming. But if you take it one day at a time, if you decide to dedicate yourself to learning something, learning a new trade, even though it might make you feel like a beginner, one day you're going to look back and you're going to thank yourself so much that you had the gumption to do it yourself and that no one had to help you.
Mhm.
You could be self-sufficient all on your own and be successful.
Love it.
And it's even more possible than it ever has been in the music industry because you can release things on Spotify without a label and reach your own audience organically, which is arguably the best way to become an artist. So that is what I pray that these young artists are listening when I say you can do it yourself if you want to. You just have to work really hard at it, and it has to be something that like you would die for, and you will always succeed if you work hard.
Agreed. Agreed. So, for those of you that want to learn more about Abs, her TikTok and her Instagram are down there at the bottom. Abs, of course. Make sure that you go ahead and follow that. I will be posting the link to her Spotify. Go ahead and follow that as well, and make sure that you turn on the notifications for when she drops a song. For the rest of you, the rest of this week, actually tonight, later on, I will be live streaming again with a gentleman named John Dietz, and we're going to be giving advice to parents on raising children.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful.
he is a phenomenal human. He has constantly he's been like a dad to me ever since we met. He hosts a podcast with us now, and we're just going to. He wants to drop some wisdom. I think one of the questions that we're asking him, or that he's going to talk about, is kids will only cost you what you have. They'll never cost any more.
Hmm.
People always think about money and everything else when they're trying to have children. He's like, kids are worth every penny, and they'll only cost you what you have available.
Right.
Outside of that, the next time we'll be live streaming is next Tuesday with hashtag Let's Talk About Something Else with the Miss Kathy Yaros. And until next time, this has been another live stream on the Apex Communications Network. Abs, as always, thank you for coming on, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yes. Thank you. Bye, guys.